President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber will hear testimony of a witness, that is through TCW 827, in relation to the target group of the Cham people. Ms. Jie Su Huang, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Greffier, Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present. Mr. Nuji is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to testify today, namely through TCW 827, confirms that through his best knowledge, he has no relationship by blood or by law to any other two accused, that is Nunji and Kieu Sampon, or through any of the civil parties admitted in this case. The witness is awaiting for the call by the chamber. President, thank you, Ms. Jie Siu Huang. The chamber now decides on the request by Nuon Jie. The chamber has received a waiver from Nuon Jie dated 6 April 2016, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requires to waive his right to be present at the 6 April 2016 hearing. He advises that his counsel advised him about the consequence of this waiver, that in no way it can be construed as a waiver of his rights to be tried fairly or to challenge evidence presented to or admitted by this court at any time during this trial. Having seen the medical report of Nuon Jie by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC dated 6 April 2016, which notes that Nuon Jie has a chronic back pain and feels dizzy and fatigue when he sits for long, and recommends that the chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nuon Jie his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via an audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nuon Jie can follow. That applies for the whole day. Court officer, please usher a witness into the courtroom. President, good morning, Mr. Witness. What is your name? Witness. My name is Saf Kamri. President, thank you, Mr. Saf Kamri. Are you known by any other names or aliases? And please observe the microphone. You should speak only after you see the red light on the tip of the microphone so that your response will go through the interpretation system and it can be interpreted into French and English simultaneously. Witness. I also have an Islamic name that is Kamaruddin Yusuf. President, thank you, Mr. Saf Kamri. And when were you born? Answer. I was born in 1950. Question. And where were you born? Answer. I was born in Ormok, Spư, Chi Yu, Cham Ca Lứ, Kampong Cham. And question, where is your current address? And please observe the microphone. Answer. I live in Trang Chumreh village, Trang Chumreh commune, Risika district, Phnom Penh. Question, what is your current occupation? And please observe the microphone, Mr. Witness. Answer. I am the director of the Supreme Islamic Center. Question, what are the names of your parents? Answer. My father is Kasos, who is deceased, and my mother is Tam Som, she is also deceased. Question, what is the name of your wife and how many children do you have? Answer. My wife is Sa Soper or Sa Per, and we have 8 children. President, thank you. The greffier made an oral report that to your best knowledge, you are not related by blood or by law to any of the 2 accused, that is Nunchi and Kir Sampon, or to any of the civil parties admitted in this case. Is the report accurate? Answer, yes, that is correct. I am not related to any of them. Question, Mr. Saf Kamri, which religion are you practicing? Answer, I am an Islamic follower. President, thank you. As an Islamic follower, can you inform the chamber that you shall tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth that you have remembered and witnessed? Answer, yes, I can say to the extent that I remember, and I will say only the truth. President, can you tell the court that you only tell the truth? Answer, I can tell the accounts which are true and which I can recall. President, the Chamber would like to inform you now of your rights and obligations before this court. Mr. Saf Kamri, Regarding your rights as a witness in the proceedings before the chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment which may incriminate you. That is your right against self-incrimination. For your obligations as a witness in the proceedings before the chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties, except where your response or comment to those questions may incriminate you. As the chamber has just informed you of your right as a witness, you must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remembered, experienced, or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that the bench or parties pose to you. And Mr. Sofkumri, have you been interviewed by OCRJ investigators? If so, how many times, when, and where? Answer: yes, I was interviewed, but I cannot recall how many times. Questioned: and before you appear before us, have you read the written record of your interview with OCRJ investigators in order to refresh your memory? Answer: yes, I have. To your best recollection, can you tell the chamber whether the written record of your interview is consistent with your testimony or interview with OCRJ investigators? Answer: I can recall parts of the written record of my interview. President: pursuant to Rule 91B of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber gives the floor first to the co-prosecutors to put questions to Sofkumri, and the combined time for the co-prosecutors and the lead co-lawyers is 2 sessions. You may proceed.
Good morning, sir. I'd like to start by asking you, sir, you've told the court that you are a Cambodian who practices Islam. Can you tell us how you identify yourself ethnically? What is your ethnicity?
I am a Cham ethnic minority.
Thank you. In discussing the Islamic community in Cambodia, in particular during the 1970s, were all of those who were Muslim, did all of those who were Muslim consider themselves to be Cham, or were there other ethnicities among the Muslim population?
Witness, please hold on, and Counsel Copper, you have the floor.
I object to this question, Mr. President. Good morning. The witness is not in a position to testify as to how the 150,000 or so Muslims define themselves. He can testify about himself, possibly his family, maybe some people from his village, but his testimony should be limited to what he knows himself.
Your Honor, the witness has said he's the president of the Islamic Association. He certainly would have knowledge about what ethnicities make up the Islamic community of Cambodia. And he lived, of course, and practices Islam during the 1970s. So may I ask the question? Sir, what different ethnicities made up the Islamic community, or make up the Islamic community in Cambodia?
It is my understanding that there are always ethnic minorities, and Cham people can live in Cambodia, and they are part of the Cambodian community as a whole.
Okay, thank you. My question's a little different, but let me rephrase it. Have you heard of the Chivia? I may be mispronouncing it. In English, I'll spell it Chvea.
Yes, I heard of a Chvia.
And can you explain who the Chivia are?
I do not know the detailed historical background of the Chvia group.
Do they practice Islam? Do you know that, whether or not they practice Islam?
Chvia people practice Islamic religion.
And sir, have you ever heard of the term Islamic Khmer?
Yes, I have.
And how is that term used, or how has it been used?
I do not know the details. However, we lived in Cambodia and we carried Cambodian citizenship, and we considered ourselves a part of a Cambodian community, but we are also known as Islamic Khmer.
Did the Chivia live in were they concentrated in different parts of Cambodia than the Cham?
We have the freedom to live as a community or to live dispersed with Cambodian people.
Okay, let me make my question more precise. Before the Khmer Rouge came, do you know in which parts of the country the Chivia lived?
At that time, I was pretty young, so I did not know in which geographical locations they lived.
Okay, thank you. Sir, let me move on then to, you said you were born in 1950. Did you grow up in Spew, in the village of Akmok, also known as Spew?
At that time, Ormog village or Ospu village, it referred to the same village.
Thank you. You said you were born there. Were you educated there?
I studied general education and Islamic religion in Ormog.
Where were you when the Khmer Rouge came to your village? Excuse me. What year was it when the Khmer Rouge came to your village?
Khmer Rouge entered Ormog village prior to 1975.
Okay, if you don't remember the exact year, that's fine. When they entered the village prior to 1975, do you remember what were you doing at that time? Were you in school? Were you working?
ក្រោយ
After the day of the coup d'etat, I didn't go to school anymore because schools were closed. And during that time, I worked in the plantation. And by 1973, I taught young children at their houses.
Okay, so when the Khmer Rouge arrived, were you working on the plantation or were you teaching Cham children?
I was teaching the children.
When you say you were teaching them, can you explain what you would teach them? Was it strictly reading, mathematics, or was it also religious training?
At that time, I taught the children both, that is Islamic morality, religion, and Khmer literature.
And can you help us by explaining how life was for Cham people in Akmok and Spoo village after the Khmer Rouge arrived, and how it changed over time, if it did change?
They almost all worked in the rice fields.
When you say they almost all worked in the rice fields, who do you mean?
All the villagers living in the village worked in the rice fields and in the plantation.
When they arrived, you indicated you were teaching children, including providing religious training. Were you allowed to continue to do that throughout the time of the Khmer Rouge regime?
No, I was not allowed to continue that teaching. However, people could continue studying the Khmer literature.
When the Khmer Rouge first arrived, did they allow the religious teaching to continue?
Before the fall of Phnom Penh, we could provide religious teaching. However, that was banned after the fall of Phnom Penh.
Did life for Cham people change in any other way after April 1975 and the fall of Phnom Penh? Were you allowed, for example, to continue to go to continue to pray publicly?
After the fall of Phnom Penh, we were not allowed to eat at our own home. We had to eat communally at a common kitchen, and we were not allowed to continue our religious practice.
Did Cham continue to dress in the same manner, or were there any regulations about how men and women who were Cham should dress?
No.
In my village, after it was under the control of the Khmer Rouge, we were not allowed to wear our customary clothing. We had to wear the same clothing provided by the Khmer Rouge.
What about the Cham language? Before the Khmer Rouge, did people in Spoo, Cham people, speak Cham? And were they allowed to continue to do that throughout the DK regime?
after the Khmer Rouge through control, we could not speak our Cham language openly. However, we could speak to one another when we were not observed.
What about the diet? Did your diet change in any way under the Khmer Rouge?
It's not only about diet, anything which were the disciplines of the religion was prohibited.
Were Cham people allowed to get together, to meet and talk to each other in public?
We could speak to each other in the open where we worked, since we worked mixed with the Khmer people.
Were Cham people allowed to hold a meeting or to speak together outside of the workplace? Was there any restriction on groups of Cham speaking together?
Besides the workplace, in the village, we could not gather in large number.
Now, sir, did you continue to teach after the Khmer Rouge arrived, or what did you do after their arrival?
I was allowed to continue teaching Khmer literature.
What instructions did you receive about what you could teach? And who was it that gave you those instructions?
There was no clear instruction for teaching, since my teaching was not that formal.
Did you ever receive any materials, told to teach about something, and they gave you some written material?
There were a few.
Do you recall what it was that you were asked to teach about?
I recall at that time that my teaching was to allow the students to read.
About how many hours per day or per week were you allowed to teach individual children? In other words, for each child, how many hours of class did they attend per day or per week?
There were no specific hours set out. It depended on the times that I provided the trainings to them.
So were the children available to you?
President, please hold on. You have the floor first, Copper.
Thank you, Mr. President. My apologies for this observation, because I think I'm about 25 minutes late with it. But I wanted to verify first before I would rise. Is there a particular reason why the witness has not given an oath, either before the Iron Statute or here, which seems to be the practice with Muslims on the Quran? Is it, if indeed he didn't take an oath, is it then my understanding that he is giving testimony unsworn, as he, I think, did in his WRI? And if yes, what is the reason?
President, there are two possibilities in Rule 24.1. The witness can take an oath based on his or her religion, or he or she can confirm the truth that he or she knows. So please refer to the internal rule. In the written record of the interview that this witness provided to the investigator of the OCIJ, he confirms that he is the Islamic religion, and based on this religion, it is not necessary for the religion leaders to take an oath. And the witness has confirmed already that he will only telling the truth. Mr. Sokkamri, could you confirm once again about the written record of the interview based on your position and your religion? It is not necessary for you to take an oath. Can you tell the reason that you do not take an oath? And I, the President, has chosen the second possibility, that you can confirm the truth that you are telling. The question was put by the defense counsel for the accused, so it should have been raised long time ago. In fact, the counsel should have raised this issue at the beginning of your testimony, witness. It is not banned in the Islamic religion that we have to take an oath. The oath is to take and to clear whenever we want to declare that we are the one who owns the property. And if we cannot recall what we remember fully, it is not necessary to take an oath. And if we cannot recall and then we have to take a note, it is against the religion, our religion. In fact, we must take a note when we want to declare about the property that we owe, for example, land property. President, the witness confirmed already about the reason. We deliberated among the trial judges yesterday to deal with the issue. That is why the chamber decided to adhere to the second possibility and it is accordant with the criteria set out in the internal rule about the confirmation of truth that the witness is telling. This is the criteria set out in internal rule 24.1, and the concerned counsel, please refer to that specific internal rule. You can now proceed, co-prosecutor.
My apologies, Mr. President, but the proceedings is as follows. If you're a witness, you give an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're not religious, you affirm solemnly that you will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So apparently the witness is religious, so he should take an oath on the Quran, as many other Islamic witnesses have done. So this third option, which now seems to be applying to this witness, is, I think, contrary to Internal Rule 24. He's not a civil party. He's not a family member of any of the accused. He doesn't fit any of the Rule 24 categories. So either an oath or a solemn declaration in court in front of all the parties that he will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Counsel is misstating. The rule says the witness shall take an oath or affirmation in accordance with their beliefs. The witness has chosen to take an affirmation. Many religions do not allow an oath. I don't know. I'm not an expert on Islam, and neither is counsel. I believe the witness has clearly affirmed that he understands he's going to tell the truth. Sir, you're also, I should tell you that according to the penal code, you're under oath, and any intentional misstatement could be punished as a crime. So do you agree, sir? Do you promise that you will be telling the truth to the best of your recollection of what you remember about what you saw and heard? Do you affirm that?
Answer. You are right. I am telling the truth. President, co-prosecutor can resume your questioning.
Sir, the children that you taught, how many hours a day were they allowed to study?
Answer. There were no specific hours to be taught to those children.
Did the children work also?
Answer. Everyone had to work when, if they could do the work. It was the obligation that they had to work.
Approximately what ages were the children that you were giving this instruction to?
Answer. They were below 15 years old.
Down to what age? What age was the youngest approximately?
The youngest was 7 years old.
Did life change for children during the DK regime and their relationship with their parents?
Answer. It depended on sectors on location. Some older children went to stay in the school buildings, and as for younger children, they had to stay in the centers where there were people looking after them.
When the Khmer Rouge arrived in Spu, approximately how many Cham families were living in the village?
Answer. I can recall that there were more than 1,250 families living in that area.
Sir, when you talk about families, I believe you use Krusa, the word family in Khmer. What does that include? Does that include just parents and children? Does it include grandparents or great-grandparents? Can you explain when you talk about how many families there were? Who's included in a family?
It did not specify clearly about the definition or meaning of families. Some families were living together. However, there were some families where husband and wife are living together with the children. So it depends. It depends on the tradition of the families.
Can you give us any estimate of the average number of people in a family so that we have some idea of the total population? You said there were about 1,250 families approximately. On average, how many people did one family have?
On average, there were around 5 or 6 people in the one family. Some family had only 1 or 2 members.
Thank you. Now, did all of these families continue to live in Spu throughout the democratic Kampuchea regime?
I object to this question, Mr. President. He's not an expert. He didn't do any survey on how many families were living in the village in '75. He was 25 years old. He was living his life. There's no distinction whatsoever being made by the prosecution as to what he knows as a witness or what he may have heard later as in his position as a dignitary. The questioning goes all directions, even if we are hearing an unsworn witness.
Your Honor, the counsel's listening. This witness was living in the village. He experienced it. He was there, and it's not a huge place. He talked about 1,250 families, and the question's not all over the place. It's very simple. How many of those families did they all continue to live in Spu during the DK regime? What did you observe, sir?
I would like to have a ruling on this. I don't even know how many families live in my street right now. I mean, how would he know?
President, the chamber decides the objections of the counsel Kope are overruled, and the intention is to try to interfere with the times used by the co-prosecutor, said the president. Co-prosecutor, please reformulate your last question. Perhaps the witness may have forgotten that question.
Sir, did all of the families remain in Spu during the DK regime, or did something happen to cause some of them to leave?
Answer. Regarding the villagers, I cannot tell you the exact number, and 20% of them, what I can say, 20 to 25%.
Sir, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. 20 to 25% what? I don't. stayed in the village or left? Can you explain what you mean?
Answer. What I mean is that 20 to 25% survived the regime, and the rest they may have been killed.
At any time were families moved out of the village by the Khmer Rouge?
Answer. After the arrival of Khmer Rouge, some of them had been evacuated out of the village, and perhaps 50 families were allowed to live in that village.
So for the families that were evacuated, not the 50 families that remained, do you know where they were sent to? Do you have any information about that?
Answer. Some of them were evacuated to some other neighboring communes in Chamkala district.
What about your own parents?
They were evacuated.
Now, were the people given a choice about whether they wanted to stay in their village or move or not?
They had no choice.
Sir, were you aware of any killings during the DK regime?
Answer. What I know is that they were killed, but I myself did not witness the real incidents.
Did you ever see any dead bodies?
Answer. All of us, including I myself, used to see the dead body because the killings were widespread.
Where did you see dead bodies?
Answer. At the killing sites, in particular, after those dead bodies, after those people were buried, and they were not completely buried.
Where were some of these sites? Do you recall? Were they in the village or outside? Do you recall where they were?
Answer. I cannot tell you all the sites. Usually people were buried at the places where they were killed.
Did you ever see any of your neighbors arrested?
Answer. Yes, I used to see them arrested. They were called out of the village. They were not tied up.
Were they walking? Were they transported in something?
Answer. It depend. It depended. Some people were taken away at the work sites. Some other were taken out of their houses.
Did you ever follow any of the people arrested to see what happened to them?
Answer: yes, I used to observe and monitor, and I noticed that they were killed and then buried.
Sir, you mentioned that the practice of Islam was prohibited. Do you know of anyone who disobeyed that order and continued to practice their religion and the Khmer Rouge knew about it?
Answer: there were some people who secretly practiced the religion at a quiet place at night time. However, they were being monitored. They would take measure according to what they have in mind.
Do you know and recall, if you don't just tell us, what happened to these people who were monitored? If you don't know of a specific case, that's fine.
We could not closely monitor since we were scared and we were trying to work, so we do not know for sure.
What about the religious leaders in SPU? Can you tell us, were there people who were the leaders of the religion in the village, and what happened to them during the DK regime?
During the regime, there were no religious leaders, since religious leaders were banned to play their role.
What happened to those who had been the religious leaders before the regime?
Answer: I think the evacuation and killings did not discriminate, did not happen on specific individuals, so it happened without discrimination.
Sir, when, after 1979, after the fall of the regime, how many Cham families returned to live in SPU?
President, please observe the microphone. Witness, as I told you already, 20 to 25% of Cham people survived. Later on, some other villagers came to reside in that village together with that 20 to 25%.
Now, sir, what happened to you? Did you remain in SPU throughout the DK regime? until 1979, or what occurred to you?
Answer. I remained living in that village until the liberation day. More than 1 month later, I evacuated myself to live in Punyakrai.
You said that there were 50 or so families that remained after some had been moved out of the village. At some point, and I presume you were one of the 50 families that remained, is that correct?
Answer. Nowadays, there are many of them. After the Liberation Day, there were around more than 100 families, or not more than 200 families surviving.
Sorry, my question was not clear. At some point, did you leave Spoo and go to live in another village?
President, please answer the question. Mr. Witness, do you understand the question? If not, you can ask the questioner to put the question again. President, International Court Prosecutor, please reformulate your question.
Sir, at some point, did you go to Choryo village?
Answer. I used to live in that village.
When did you live in that village, and why did you move there?
Answer. I lived in Jeyo for 1 year. Perhaps it was in early 1977, and I returned to my previous village in 1978, early 1978.
Why did you go to Choryo village?
Answer. It was my observation that I would not survive living in the Spoo. That is why I asked a permission to go and live in Jeyo.
Why were you afraid you would not survive in Spoo? What had you seen?
Answer. I thought at the time, if I was not evacuated, it was not good for me, and killings started to take place. Although I had not been evacuated at the time, I thought I had to ask a permission to go live in another village.
Now, in Choryo village, what was your position there? Did you teach, or what did you do?
Yes, at that time I was allowed to continue my teaching as I was practicing Spoo.
Now, at some point, did you change your name?
No, I did not change my name.
What was the name you were born with?
At that time, I used the same name, that is Sokamri.
And where does the name Kamaruddin bin Yusuf come from?
There was an original name in Islamic language.
So where did you get that name? Did your father give it to you, or how did you get the name Kamaruddin bin Yusuf?
In practice, the parents would name their children in full. However, sometimes when an identity card was made, usually the names would be shortened. And during the Khmer Rouge regime, as I did not want to reveal my charmed names, then the name was shortened.
So you shortened the name to So Kamri, is that correct?
The family name was Yusuf, and Kamaruddin was shortened to Kamri.
Thank you, I understand. Now, did you ever recall attending a meeting during the time that you lived in Chayo at another village in Chamkarlu district called Bos Kanar?
Since I was relocated to several locations, I can recall that event clearly.
Do you recall ever attending any meeting where the Khmer Rouge were talking about their plan and they referred to the Cham? Do you recall that?
I object, Mr. President. He's leading the witness.
I'm asking the witness if he remembers, and I'm not leading, but I'm certainly entitled to refresh his recollection and first giving him an opportunity to see if he remembers. Sir? Do you remember attending any meeting where the
The objection by the defense is overruled. This question is permissible as it is meant to refresh the memory of the witness. Witness, as I said, I was moved to several locations, and please try to refine your question.
My question is about whether you recall attending a meeting in Bos Kanar village where they had an agenda of the meeting where the Khmer Rouge talked about enemies.
During every meeting held by the Khmer Rouge, the subject of enemy was raised. And the same thing applies to when I was in Boknau. So be more specific, please.
Well, I'm trying to get you to tell us in your own words. What do you remember when they talked about enemies? Do you remember the Khmer Rouge defining who the enemies were?
There were many types of the enemies under the Khmer Rouge definitions, namely the reactionaries, the religious leaders, or those former officials of the previous regimes. And Cham people were also one type of enemies.
Do you specifically recall that they talked about Cham being enemies?
They did not specifically refer to Cham, but they refer to those Islamic followers.
I'd like to read from something and see if it refreshes your recollection, or you tell us whether it does or doesn't, and whether it's correct or not. And this is from a book, E3/2653. In Khmer, it's 00904362, and the next page. And in French, 00943975. In English, it appears at page 116. And talking about you, sir, the book says that Khmer explained that the Khmer Rouge didn't know he was a Cham. And so they appointed him to look after 400 children in Cheo village, Chamkarlu district. One day during 1977, he was called to a meeting in Bos Kanar village in Chamkarlu district. The agenda for the meeting was was to specify a plan called, quote, the plan to smash the enemy. Camry reported that during the meeting, he heard the chairman...
Please hold on, International Co-Prosecutor and Counsel Copper. You had the floor.
I really cannot believe, Mr. President, that you allow this kind of questioning just by reading that excerpt from his book without, just for the form, asking one or two questions and then feeding it to him. We're now entering the area where the reason why this particular witness is coming, of course, it's completely unreliable. He doesn't even remember, but now prosecution is just feeding him his answer. It's completely worthless, but this really is a practice that we shouldn't be having here, Mr. President. I object strongly.
Your Honor, I look forward to counsel changing his practice, which is often to read the statements of people not the witness, unrelated to the witness completely. He does it daily, so I'm glad to hear that he's not going to do that anymore. This is a statement of this witness. I've asked him about the meeting. It's clearly according to all the practice and rules that we've had to now ask if this refreshes his recollection. He can tell us whether it does or does not. May I ask the question?
First, the objection by the defense team is overruled. Regarding the strategy of questioning by the international co-prosecutor, as it is in line with the practice of the chamber, and it has been a practice used by the parties so far. Secondly, on the issue of reliability, is not a matter that we can do it now. The probative value of an evidence is at the sole discretion of the chamber at a later stage, that is, before the issuance of the judgment. And International Co-Prosecutor, you may continue.
So, sir, the book goes on to say that you said that the agenda for the meeting was to specify a plan called the Plan to Smash the Enemy, and that you reported that during the meeting you heard the chairman declare, quote, "The enemies of the revolution are many, but our biggest enemies are the Jam. So the plan calls for the destruction of all the Jam people before 1980. So, sir, I realize that 1977 was 39 years ago, but do you recall, having heard that, do you recall anything about this meeting?
Yes, I recall that. I think during the first meeting in Boknao, they only mentioned about the enemies. They did not specify the types of the enemies. However, regarding the Cham people, that was at a later stage of the meeting, and that was the account in that book.
Sir, do you remember who it was that made that statement? If it was a man or a woman, their name, if you know?
No, I cannot recall that, and I did not know that person.
Did you know any of the Khmer Rouge leaders at the district or sector level in Chamkerlu or in the sector?
It was difficult to get to know those people during the regime. I only know people living in the village.
Did you ever know a man by the name of Ban Siek, also known as, I believe the pronunciation is Po, also known as Ho? Did you ever know him?
The name is Bansi Ali Po. No. President, thank you, International Co-Prosecutor. It is convenient for a short break. We take a break now and resume at 10:30. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil parties during the break time, and invite him back into the courtroom at 10:30. The court is now in recess.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ